Celeste, hi, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining. So, first question for you. You're a skier, but you're also a mountain biker. If you had to pick summer or winter, which one are you picking?
Oh, that's really tough. Um, I always say that I would actually pick spring because then I can do both.
Oh, that's she's going around the question.
It's
Yeah,
tough.
that's fair.
Yeah, it's really tough. I grapple with that question a lot, like which sport do I like better or which season do I like better? And I think especially for us here in British Columbia, our summers are so long. Like we have like pretty much 8 months of mountain bike season, and the best day ever on the mountain bike doesn't match the best day ever on skis. The best day on skis is so much better, but you can have way more good days on a bike in a row, so they kind of even each other out, so I can't really answer which one I like better.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So a lot of
Mhm.
skiers, like some that I've spoken to on the podcast, they kind of chase winter. So they go in
Yeah,
summer in places that there's snow. Is that something that you do or have done in the past?
I actually personally haven't done it. I'd say the closest I ever got to it was when I was ski racing. As a kid, we'd go down to Mount Hood to ski, and one time I had the opportunity to train in Chile, but otherwise, oh yeah, and then of course WAVY, that was shot in May and June. So other than that, I typically stick around so that I can do both of my sports.
Fair enough. And
Yeah.
you've mentioned it there, but it's something that I really want to talk about is the Wavy project that you did. Can you
Mhm.
give an overview if someone hasn't heard of it or watched the video of what it is, slightly crazy, and then kind of how it went as well?
So WAVY, I basically got reached out to early on in my partnership with Black Crows, asking if I'd be interested in sailing for 3 weeks in Svalbard and making a ski movie about it with another Black Crows athlete, Nikolai Schirmer. And I was like, of course, yes, that's like a dream for most people. So that was, of course, yes. And basically, the premise of the trip was to learn to sail with a captain that owns a boat that Nikolai had already been on in the first Wavy movie that he had had a poor experience with. And this new captain had rebuilt the ship. It was going to be a better experience. So he resold it to him as, come on, like, let's go. This will be a trip of a lifetime. And I got invited. We were on the boat for 3 weeks, just kind of sailing around looking for good skiing and meeting really fun, interesting people along the way. And telling a story about it, and it was super unique and definitely an experience I'll never forget.
And also dodging polar bears. Let's not forget.
Yes, yes, there were a few polar bears. We didn't get close to having any interactions with one, other than the first one we saw was on land at the same time we were, but the rest of the ones that we saw were always on land while we were on the boat, so that was good. We'd see polar bear tracks everywhere, but we
Gosh,
were
you
safe.
probably become like a bit more normalized to it as well. Like the first day, you're like, "Oh my goodness," and then you're like, "Oh, it's fine," week in, and you kind of forget the way the human brain works. It's like once you adapt to it, then
Yeah,
the risk
yeah,
becomes less. It's interesting.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. It was
oh,
good.
sorry.
Oh, nothing.
Um, so then also you went and you were searching for snow, and it wasn't
Yeah,
actually as amazing the snow that you thought it would be. So you spent
yeah.
a lot of time kind of looking about for snow, not doing as much skiing, or the video portrays it as that, as you perhaps wanted to initially. So I want to ask you kind of about maybe this is going a bit deep in philosophy, but do you know that it's about the journey, isn't it? So you've spent this time on the boat, you've met these people who are like-minded people, and you're exploring this new part of the world, which very few people actually go up to the North Pole. How was that kind of the frustration of not being able to ski as much, but then also kind of settling into the peacefulness of, well, we are within nature. There's nothing we
Yeah,
can do to control it. And you just have to have that peace. What was the mental picture like for you in that?
I think. Well, I mean, you can see it in the film. I'm clearly frustrated with the lack of skiing, but it made sense because the snow conditions were relatively poor. The skiing that we did find was always super fun, and those were the days I had the most joy. Um, but at the same time, because it was the first time I'd ever been really filming a ski anything before, I was really happy the whole time, and I was like pretty stoked the whole time, regardless of whether or not we were skiing. I just was really enjoying the trip and being there. As for the other people on the boat that wanted to ski, like for Nikolai and Osbjorn, I know that they have been on a lot of ski filming trips, and they've been doing it for years and years. So for them, it was probably a bit more disappointing. But yeah, it was an interesting thing to grapple with, being like, I'm here to ski, I want to ski, but I should also be thankful that I'm here in the first place. So yeah.
Yeah. And then you mentioned that you started skiing, you were ski racing, and then you've kind of changed into this more like ski touring and backcountry skiing. What was that development of, I'm going to change this, still stay in the sport, but I mean, you probably consider them probably like different sports entirely because they're so different. So what was that transition like?
So I quit ski racing at 17. I'm 28 now, so that was 11 years ago, but that was right at the end of high school for me. And when I first moved to the Canadian Rockies, that's where I did my undergrad degree. I kind of took a year off of, a couple of years off of skiing pretty much. Like, I was still skiing for fun. I was this and that. I'd been ski touring a couple of times, but I didn't have that love that I do now. Like, it took a while for it to come back, just because ski racing was so regimented and it was so competitive, and the spandex and the drama, like everything was kind of like triggering still. So I didn't really want to like hop aggressively back in. And then I met a wonderful group of human beings in Calgary and in the Canadian Rockies that kind of reintroduced me to the love of skiing, and I got back aggressively into backcountry skiing. And I still take a lot from my ski racing days. I'm still quite critical of my skiing. If I see a video of me skiing and I don't like it, I'm very vocal about it, or I won't post it if I'm thinking I'm skiing poorly, or I'll think about it while I'm skiing on the resort. I'm still having that like training approach to the way I ski, and to the way I backcountry ski, and to the way I couloir ski. All of it, I'm quite critical still, but it was so amazing and extremely lucky, honestly, that I got reintroduced into backcountry skiing the way I did. As for it becoming a career, that was not the plan. So this has been a really sick adventure so far, the last few
So
years.
you decide, okay, I'm going to do more backcountry skiing. You meet people, like as you said, and then I assume that you go out with them and you get better and you really enjoy it. Then how do you make that jump to, as you say, making it as a career? Like, that's pretty cool, because it's quite a set. I imagine there's quite a set pathway if you're going to be a ski racer, but it's a bit more different, like less regimented, as you said, which is what you liked about it. But how did you do that?
I think basically what happened was, when I moved back to Squamish, where I'm living now, from the Rockies, I was so excited about ski touring at this point, and still have that like ski racer mentality for progression. So I was just skiing all the time. Like, I took a couple of years off before trying to do something else on the side of sport. Like, after school, I was like, I'm not going to get a job the first couple of years. I'm just going to work at a brewery and like enjoy myself. So I was just skiing as much as possible and improving every single day, with people that could help me improve, and made friends within that community. And that's kind of how it sort of domino affected into where I'm at today, because the Sea to Sky Highway, like this west coast side of British Columbia, there's a lot of people in the ski industry that are connected. And I just happened to start getting a little bit of support here and there, and it just kind of domino affected to where I am today. And I'm extremely thankful for it, because I guess part of me wanted to do this, but I never really vocalized it or was trying to make this the direction of my life. So,
and are there, like, because it's not competitions really, so how do you do it? Like, is it certain expeditions that you take part in, or what are people sponsoring you to do?
It's more like storytelling based ski touring stuff. So for me, my goal is just to be able to pitch projects that I'm feeling really passionate about, like film and photo projects, and be able to tell stories about it. I'm quite excited about longer adventures that include having fun on the descent. So I'm not like the ski mountaineers that really do it for the ascent and for the summit. I'm doing it for kind of the whole experience with the descent as well. So my focus is, it's not competition, it's storytelling, project based, with a focus on the backcountry.
So you think of a project and you're like, okay, this is a really solid idea. Then what do you do in terms of trying to pitch it to someone to get involved?
So far in my experience, I'm still quite new at it, and it's all it's been a huge learning curve. I have quite a few friends that are cinematographers and photographers, and they've been helpful. But basically, if I have a good idea, or at least I think it's a good idea, I've gotten better at creating a pitch deck. And depending on who I feel might fit that project best, I will tune it for them. And then I'll present it to them being like, this is how it could benefit you. This is how it could benefit both of us. Would be great if you wanted to support it. Yeah, so but still, it's such a big learning curve. Like, I haven't produced my own ski film yet. Hopefully this season, but yeah, still in the learning process of all that. Up until now, it's just been me joining other trips.
What are these kind of like topics? Like, what sort of things are you like? Giving an example of a project that you think of. What is it like? How does it go?
How does it go? Okay. Well, I have a few, but I can't really talk about a couple of them because I'm hoping that they happen. For example, in the
one, a hypothetical one.
Well, I can give you an example for in the bike world. For example, there's like a loop out here that I did a few years ago. I was looking at a map and saw that you could connect two of the fjords here, and they actually they're the southernmost fjords in North America, and one's pretty much in Squamish. One is Squamish, and then the other one's in North Vancouver. So I was looking at the map, and I saw that you can connect all three using multiple mediums of sport. So I got really excited about that, and how I pitched it was okay, since I'm using multiple mediums of sport and I'm doing something in a way that nobody else has done it before, that's the hook. And multiple mediums of sport means multiple different types of sponsors could get on board and support the project. And so that was the first ever like storytelling based project I'd done, and it wasn't even a video piece, it was just photos and a blog. But I still am very proud of it because it was like never done before situation and multiple mediums of sport. So hoping to bring that into skiing, in the sense like doing things that maybe someone hasn't done that specific way, or telling a story, like a personal story that maybe a few other people are experiencing but not everyone's experiencing, things like that, but trying to tie in sport.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to talk to you about fear. So maybe you're like at the top of a couloir and you're looking down and you're like, holy crap, that's really steep. By that point you're kind of committed to it. But a lot of like normal people, people who don't do these extreme sports would be like, okay, I'm absolutely not going to do that. I'm going to die. Yeah, then you have the polar bears, for example, like we touched on. How do you deal with the fear element of that, or is it something that you have adapted to, or do you have like a mental mantra that you kind of implement at the right moment?
As for dealing with fear, and this applies to both skiing and biking, it's like if I have something that I'm afraid of that I would like to ski or ride one day, I will try to ski and ride similar things that aren't quite to that level to work my way up, because I find it's how do I even describe it? Once I've skied or biked something that's similar, it's kind of like I unlock another level, and then I get rid of that fear. So obviously I'm still scared every single time. Fear is always going to be there, but just knowing that I can do something similar, or I've done something similar in the past, is really helpful. So I'll just make sure that on the side I'm at least training or preparing to do said thing. And as for mantras on the top, I remind myself, like, you've done something this scary, if not scarier, or very similar before somewhere else. You can do it. You're strong enough. You've been training. So that's kind of how I deal with it. Also with couloirs, I mean, this doesn't apply all the time, and it did not apply to that last couloir in WAVY, but often they look so much worse from a distance than they are up close. And also a lot of people's POVs make them look a lot scarier than they are. A lot of them are really, really freaky, but it is nice to know that when I'm approaching a new couloir that looked really scary from far away, that often it's not quite as scary once you're in it or hiking up it.
Because then you get to the top, but before you get to the top, you've got to hike up to it. And often, because you've got your skis strapped to your back, so suddenly like your weight's a bit off because you've got a lot more weight on your back, and then you're literally going up these cliffs, and it's like you're almost like it's almost like free solo with skis on your back up ice, and then you're like going to ski down it. So it really is an extreme sport, kind of from start to finish with that. Do you ever look down when you're climbing up like the last bit? Like, oh gosh, okay, better hold on.
Yeah, I do catch myself. I try not to, too much until I'm at the top.
Until it's too
But
late.
but also I always notice that like the moment I have my skis clicked in, I'm so much more confident than on my own feet. It's like the moment I have my skis clicked in, I know that I'm probably gonna be okay.
That's such a skier thing to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my feet, I'm like pretty clumsy. I feel like I have two left feet, so whenever I'm walking around up in high alpine terrain, I feel like a toddler, like not totally sure where to go. But as for once I have my skis on and I'm looking down a couloir, it's a lot less intimidating than when you're physically hike or boot packing up it.
Yeah. And then another aspect that we're just going to throw into the mix here are avalanches. So I
Yeah.
currently live in the French Alps, and I've done like skiing like quite a lot throughout my life, and I'm kind of more like venturing into the slightly more avalanche terrain, and it's scary. And when you don't know a huge amount about it, like you need to learn and you need to have the equipment. So as someone who then is literally in knee deep into the avalanche terrain, I'm sure you've seen some dodgy things, and I just want to talk about the experiences with that.
Yeah, avalanche terrain. So I try not to go into terrain I don't trust, and if I don't trust it, I'll try to go with people who've either been there before or probably know a little bit more than me, so I can ask a lot of questions. That's kind of how I approach learning. Obviously, I'm doing my courses and trying to upgrade them as much as possible, but nothing beats experience and going out with people that might know a little bit more or might have a different experience than you, just so that you can ask them a lot of questions. And if you're traveling with someone who's going to judge you for the questions you're asking, you're probably out there with the wrong people.
For sure.
But that's kind of how I approach it. But I have been in a couple of situations. I've been quite lucky though, for the most part. Last year, I was on a shoot that the day ended with a bit of an avalanche. Nobody died, but somebody got hurt. And that was a huge learning experience. And when I lived in the Rockies, there was a couple events that happened within couloirs even, which was really surprising because a lot of the time you hear couloirs are safe because they self-manage themselves because they're steep. But that's not always the case. So yeah, it's kind of look at the avalanche bulletin, go out with people that you trust, and get educated.
Yeah, literally. It's terrifying.
Yeah, and expose yourself. Expose yourself to the terrain. Like be in it and be afraid.
Yeah.
And that helps. Yeah.
It's just crazy, isn't it? Like the respect that you need to have for the mountain and nature about like around you. And I guess in the Rockies there is so much snow that there then inevitably is a lot of avalanches that you see, and yeah, it's scary, do you know, and it is very real, and the weight of the snow is something that must just be crazy. So yeah,
Yeah.
scary stuff. And
Very
then
scary. Yeah.
in conclusion, scary stuff. And then if you do fall when you're going down something so steep, you can't really stop yourself that well with the gravity. What happens then?
I mean, I guess it depends on what you're skiing. For example, with the WAVY experience, I made a mistake. I locked my toes out on that last couloir that I fall down before dropping in because I was afraid. I was scared. I got up to the top and I was like, this couloir is about as wide as my skis. I am not comfortable straight lining this first part, and I'm going to want to take turns. So I'm going to lock my toes out, which was silly because I feel like you're not really supposed to lock your toes out unless it's like a life or death situation. I should have just let my skis fall off. And that experience was eye-opening to me because the snow was so heavy. That was like pulling me down the couloir. It was all of like my slough that I'd like kicked up. And I could feel the top of my shin starting to bend over my boot. And I knew that, yeah, a case like that, for example, you want to have your skis unlocked. You want to let yourself fall. And I've had another experience where I pretty much fell down an entire face of a mountain. And what I did in that was kind of like surfing. I'm a terrible surfer, but in surfing, when you crash, you're supposed to just kind of like let your body go. But I did protect my head. So everyone's kind of got their own way of doing it. But for me, it's like put your hands over your head and then just like deal with it as you're falling. And choose when to lock out your toes if you're going to do it.
And where do you feel like with the mountain biking and then the skiing, are there like Okay, if we have a Venn diagram, what is in the middle of it? Where are the overlaps in the sports that you see and how you do them?
Yeah, so this is actually a really interesting question, and I do want to explore this more with a project one day. But I feel like in mountain biking there isn't a lot of conversation around the backcountry mountain biker. So sorry, my cat's there. Um, she so there's an area here, and a lot of places in the world that people go out bikepack mountain biking, and that's in the backcountry. Like you need to bring a satellite device with you. You need and rescue can take up to 3 hours, and that's very similar to backcountry skiing. And I think a lot of people just nonchalantly go into terrain like that during bike season without analyzing the risk first, because there's no avalanches, because the risk might seem perhaps less, but it can be very, very similar to being in the backcountry. So I think overlap there is if you're choosing to go out farther on a bike, like be more adventurous on a bike, similarly to the skis, that's the same type of risk should be considered. You should still have your first aid kit. You still have a splint. You should still have your satellite phone and be ready for an emergency. Yeah, that's my experience so far on the Venn diagram, is taking into consideration where you're going and who you're going with.
So what sort of mountain biking is your ideal day out?
It's very similar to skiing. It's this, like 1.5 type fun. So I try to go far or yeah, try to go far, go uphill, but there needs to be a reward of like some form of descent. I'm not into the like traversy type where you don't really get to go downhill and it kind of feels like going uphill both ways. I like having that descent. So I'll do everything in my power to make that happen. But that's how I approach biking. That's how I approach skiing. As long as there's some sort of reward at the end of the day, at the end of the trip, whatever it is, that's what's valuable to me.
So you're skiing through the winter and then early spring, and then suddenly you're mountain biking. Do you ever just like sit on a beach and chill out, or like when is your time to avoid burnout?
The fall. The fall is definitely that time for me. I do, I have been noticing more like the last few years now that I've gotten like this heightened support and there's more expectation coming out of me with sport, which I actually really enjoy. But I have noticed like the transition between bike and ski to bike is a bit harsher just because I am so focused on bike until ski starts and vice versa. Whereas before it was definitely like I could ease into it better. Um, so the fall is a good time because I feel like in the fall I'm tired of biking. Skiing hasn't started yet. I can just chill. I don't know, I can go to the gym. I can fix myself, everything. But yeah, that's pretty much it though.
With this like world of media that you can tap into, you can create these bike films, ski films, you can do loads of traveling. Like it's quite like it's a new opportunity that we wouldn't be able to do even 10, 15 years ago and live our
Yeah.
lives in this way. And it's really cool because of those opportunities. But do you ever feel overwhelmed by almost like so many potential opportunities and it's so what word am I trying to figure out? Like it's not defined. Do you know you can go in any direction. It's not like you have a 9 to 5 and you just turn up and you do your thing and you go back. There's like no on, there's no off, there's no like levels that you can go up that are very much like set in stone. Is it overwhelming as well? Like at points are you just like, oh my goodness, why can't I just like be a dentist or something?
Yeah. Yes. I deal with that a lot, especially this season because we have no snow. So I've been sitting around being like, hey, I need to be brainstorming. I need to like come up with things I want to go shoot and things I want to do. But at the same time, I'm in school right now. Like I'm doing my master's right now, so that I have a backup plan when I'm done sport eventually, or something that I can juggle at the same time. Um, but yeah, no, that's a very real feeling, being overwhelmed and having a lot of possibility, and there's a lot of other people doing the same thing as well. So it's trying to like stick to your niche and evolve with your niche and work with that. That's kind of where I'm going.
And when you kind of feel a bit overwhelmed by it, what do you do to ground yourself and think, okay, this is my why, this is why I'm doing it?
I don't know. Honestly, when I'm getting overwhelmed, it's tough. It is something I'm actually working on right now. It's been, especially this season, just a little bit more time to think about being overwhelmed and slowing down a bit. So that is a really good question because I'm still trying to figure that out. For the most part, it's just hanging out with some friends and talking to other people that are having similar experiences or doing similar things, and then falling back and focusing on school. That's kind of where I'm at. But at the same time, I do remind myself like how I got here, why I'm meant to still be here, why it's still relevant, and all that. So.
And you mentioned that there's a lot of people doing similar things to you, which means that you have a community and you don't feel so alone in it. But then it also means that you need to maintain your authenticity and think, okay, why are they going to pick me? Why am I someone who's perfect for this project or whatever it may be? So how do you kind of balance that of being part of a community, but also making yourself stand out in a way that is attractive to brands, which ultimately are paying your bills?
Um, I guess it's just following my niche again. I'm still focusing on the 1.5 Type Fi, and I also think the style of skiing I'm doing is not quite as popular for a lot of people, because I'm more focused on like the couloir, big mountain type of skiing, whereas a lot of the up and comer skiers, they're more focused on like big cliffs and tricks and that type of stuff, which is totally respectable. But I prefer to ski steep stuff. So I just remind myself that I have like my own niche, and yes, there's a lot of other people that are skiing and maybe also juggling a mountain bike career at the same time. Maybe they even live within an hour of me. But yeah, it's just about knowing our differences, our different interests. And also there's space for a lot of people. I think, especially for women in sport, there's been a lot of, or historically it's been like, there's only room for one type. And I think that's starting to change a lot. So that's been really nice to see, is other women that are pursuing mountain biking and skiing as part of their careers at the same time. And that's
Yeah.
actually inspiring.
Yeah, for sure. It is super inspiring. And it's been something that's been quite a breakthrough in women's sport. You've seen it on lots of different levels and lots of different sport, like women's football. Women's football is just kind of firing through at the moment. And then women's cycling as well. You've got the road cycling, the women's Tour de France, and the mountain biking as well, which has always been, there's been less female participation significantly than male participation. And then I guess skiing, especially the extreme level of skiing that you are doing, is probably a similar thing. So it's really encouraging, like as you say, that there are other people doing it, and it is becoming something that is being like, you've got a community around you and you're able to build that. And it's really been quite recent that there's been those developments and the raise in participation of these sports, which is so cool actually when you think about it like that,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah. And I think it comes from these like women that kind of spearheaded the movement, right? Like in mountain biking, my biggest hero, who's now like one of my best friends, like Michaela Gatto, she was like what got me so excited about mountain biking years. I've been mountain biking my whole life, but I kind of also took a sec away from it. And when I saw her Ferda Girls video that came out in like 2018 or 2017 or something, I was like mind blown, and I was all in for mountain biking again. And then it just turns out that when I moved to Squamish, she was one of my roommates, and now she's like an older sister to me. So it's like having these mentors and having these people to look up to. I think that's really valuable. And I think that's why there's been a lot more women like knowing that they can do it. Nobody's telling them they can't anymore, or they can't because they're a woman. So that's been really cool to see, especially mountain biking. The progression in mountain biking in the women's scene is insane.
And it's really cool as well because you can have these role models who, like, as your example there, you end up being roommates with. Or
Yeah.
it's like social media has also enabled people to have role models that they don't even know. Do you know, people like younger girls might be following you on Instagram and being like, wow, she's actually able to do both sports and I really love both of those sports. Do you know? And she's able to do this, and like you laugh, but it's true because like we have this amazing social media which has a lot of downsides and a lot of negative points, but it does enable us to feel inspired by people. Do you know, we have the podcast space, we have YouTube space, the short films. Like, why is it that you can either have a career as a competitive sports person, or you can do the storytelling short films on YouTube, which are also very desirable for brands? Like, if you think about it, because people want to be inspired, why do people watch all of these documentaries and these like extreme sports and just the storytelling as well, even like the less extreme ones, bike packing trips, whatever it may be? Like, people want to be inspired and buy into it. And it's super interesting that it's something that people like, there's such an appetite for, isn't there?
Yeah, yeah, it is really interesting. Actually,
Which is
speaking
kind
of
of,
YouTube, I don't have a YouTube channel, but yeah, I'm not there yet.
are you going to get a YouTube channel? Is that the next step?
I I don't know. I like if I had a YouTube channel, that'd have to be like my whole focus.
Hmm.
And I just don't think I'm there yet. But there are other women that mountain bike and ski that I look up to that have YouTube channels, and they do it in an authentic way. So that would be the thing. I think it's just trying to approach it from an authentic place.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah,
Mhm,
because I think there can be like a rush of I must do this because someone else may be doing it in whatever field that anybody is in. But
mhm,
you need to say, is that actually authentic to what I want to build? Like, is it on brand to your personal brand? But also,
mhm.
there's no rush really. Like, if you want
Yeah.
to do something as a career, you don't need to rush into it. Enjoy the moment, and then you can perhaps in 6 months or a year, like if you're going to be in it for the next however many years, why are you rushing it? Do you know? And you can think about that for everything. Like, we're always in such a rush in life,
Mhm,
just such a
mhm.
rush, more and more and more. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's especially the reality when working with brands because they have different deliverables every year. So there is a bit of a rush there, but I guess that's just part of the job. And that's okay as long as it's not. Yeah, I just try to with brands. I'm very lucky because right now I'm supported by brands that I truly believe in and I actually really admire and like I love all the products. I adore them, and I just want to avoid stepping into a space where I'm getting supported by sponsors that I for products I don't believe in just because it's money, you know. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so the pressure doesn't feel as bad if you believe in who's supporting you.
Yeah, I guess it just goes back to that authenticity. Do you know?
Mhm.
Like, you don't want to sell yourself for something that actually doesn't align with what you're trying to do or what you're trying to build. So it's,
Yeah,
yeah, being aware of that and being brave and like backing yourself and just being like, okay, it's going to be okay. It's an
yeah.
interesting concept for sure. So when you're standing at the top of a couloir, this is what you love to do in skiing.
Yeah.
Why? What is the thrill? What do you love about it?
I don't know. Yeah, it's a hard one. I think because I come from really liking to go fast from ski racing, like I've been like brainwashed my whole life to enjoy going quickly. I think couloirs, and because they're steep, all of the skills that I brought from ski racing apply to them. And I think because I know I can do them and I can do them decently okay, and typically we're at the top of a mountain, so the view is insane from up there. It took a bunch of different skills to get there. Boot packing is a whole different thing from ski touring. The equipment you're bringing, how did you get there? What did you carry up with you? I think it's just like all of these little components lead up to each other, and just knowing that if you make it down safe, it's going to be a really nice time. And yeah, it's kind of just like the reward of getting to descend.
Yeah. And with the projects that you've done, so cycling and skiing so far, what are the low points that have happened? Any particular moments where you're like, oh man,
Uh, Not like huge low points. I think it's always like the post production stuff that is like takes a long time. And it's yeah, like right now I'm finishing off a bike project that I started in the fall. It's all done, but like last night we went and filmed a couple other pieces and it just feels like this endless process. I'm super excited for this project to come out because it's the first time I've produced like a proper bike project for myself, but it's just yeah, I think that the lowest parts are the post production, and then also pre production asking for money. I suck at asking for money, and I hate asking for money. So it's like those two are the hardest things. Is like the beginning and then the end.
yeah.
But the
But
middle
when
is
you're
fun because you
there, you're
get
like,
to do
oh,
your
this is
sport.
good. This is good.
Yeah. Mhm.
Cool. And then as we look ahead into 2024, what can we expect to see from you?
Um, well, I'm switching to a new bike sponsor support, which I'm really excited about, and I can't say anything yet. So hopefully with that comes with more adventure-based storytelling. As for skiing, I've got actually more of a creative project hopefully coming out next fall. And I'm about to leave on a trip I'm really excited about that is going to be more storytelling based. So I've got like like, yeah, 3 or 4 things that I'm really looking forward to that should all be coming out sometime between March and the end of next fall.
And
And I'm
you're
just
also
going to keep
doing, oh, sorry.
pushing this stuff. No, it's okay. And I'm just going to keep pushing the storytelling and the adventure-based mountain biking and skiing. And it'd actually be really cool to do something where I could do the two of them together.
Yeah. And I actually spoke to a girl the other week, and she had just done a ski touring trip, but she'd been bike packing through the Dolomites and just stayed in some huts and like did like these trips, and it was amazing. She made a video out of it. It was seriously cool. So yeah, I love seeing the combination of your two things as well. Sorry, I'm choking
It's
slightly.
okay.
I'm just gonna have a glass of water. Oh,
That's okay.
I'm just so excited. But yeah, seeing the combination of the two things that you really love doing because it's authentic. Oh my goodness, I feel like I've said authentic like 2,000 times in this episode. But it's like what people buy into as well. If you actually see something that you can tell someone actually loves doing it, it's pretty cool to watch.
Yeah. And that's what I hope to showcase with any of the projects I do, because I'm so obsessed with skiing and mountain biking. Like, they're my greatest loves, my biggest passion. So like being able to do it and being able to show that to people is very, very exciting for me. And I feel very privileged to have the opportunity to be able to do this. So yeah.
Amazing. And if someone wants to follow you online and keep up to date with these projects and see the things that you're publishing as well, where should they go?
Just my Instagram, just Celeste Pomerantz. Yeah, I don't have too much.
Don't downplay it. Don't downplay it at all. Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Celeste. It was super
thank you so much for having me.
All about your skiing and your biking and how you combine both of those two together. And then thank you for answering my quiz questions on the scary things about skiing as well.
That's okay. Those are important conversations, and yeah, it's really cool to be invited to talk on your show, and I'm excited to hear it when it comes up.